sometimes when we are walking in darkness, it is a blessing because we have no choice but to trust. If everywhere that I walk, the light is always on and I can see, and it's always a rock, this is easy. Look, I'm walking on a rock. No problem. Whoa. That's a problem. Every time I wear Corinne, that happens. Every time. But you know what? If I were to turn these lights out, and this room was rock and sand, I would have to trust, wouldn't I? Whoa. Whoa. Sometimes it is a blessing for us to have to walk where there is rock and sand, because only then can we begin to understand what trust in God is. If my life is always easy and always good, then I become God. I trust me. But sometimes when I have to walk where I do not understand, it is then that I learn what trust means. When we look at the Psalms, 1, 2, 3. Jai, you have not heard this before. Some have. Some have heard this before. Some have not. You all have not heard this before. Walter Brueggemann is a Bible teacher. Good morning.
Morning.
Walter Brueggemann says that there are 3 kinds of psalms. Class, do you remember?
Yes.
Orientation, disorientation, reorientation. 3 different good. These are 3 very, good morning, Brother John. These are very difficult psalms. Come on up. Yeah. These are 2 very nice men. You have nothing to be worried about. Good morning, Grace. Good morning, John. So, orientation psalm. Orientation psalm. Yes, rock. The lights are on. I'm standing on a rock. God is good. Wow, life is good. God is good. I have food in my belly. I have money in my pocket. My children are growing. Things are good. Wow, this is good. Orientation psalm. Disorientation psalm. That was last week. Remember? Oh, the lights are off. I cannot see you, God. Everywhere I walk, there's sand. Or worse yet, God, I have fallen into the sand and I cannot get up. God, I am angry at you. God, where are you? Help me. Help me, please. This is disorientation. Confused. To be disoriented means to be very confused. I do not understand, God. I thought that you were here for me, and I don't see you. Help me. I am disoriented. What's the Burmese word for disorient or confused? I am confused.
Shotwela.
Shotwela. Shotwe. I'm confused. Thank you. I am confused about how to say that word. Shotwe. All right. We are at the bottom. We are in the sand. We are suffering. We are struggling. Today in Psalm 27, we finally move to reorientation. I have been on the rock. I have fallen into the darkness and the sand, but now God has scooped down and picked me up and put me back on the rock. Ah, God, you are good. God, I have suffered. Reorientation is when we finally come back around here, okay, to the top. Now, Psalm 27, we are not there yet. We are in between these 2. Okay? We are not all the way there yet. In Psalm 27, we see first, praise. The Lord is my light, my salvation. Who should I fear? Should I be afraid of you? No. Should you be afraid of me? No. Because God is our light and our salvation. When evil men come to destroy me, they will fall into the sand. They will stumble and fall, says the writer. Yea, though a mighty army marches against me, my heart shall know no fear. I am confident that God will save me. Wow. Now, is this person standing on a rock? Not yet. They are on the sand. Oh, look at this army. You're coming to hurt us. Yeah? Look, I see darkness coming. What are we going to do? I'm going to trust you, God. God, there are evil things coming toward me. I do not know what to do. God, I trust that you are the light and you will protect me. You see? They are not standing on a rock. They are in a difficult place. But they trust that God will take care of them. Not orientation. Not disorientation. Not reorientation. But in between. They are in the in-between place. Do you know the word in-between? In-between means I am not there with Bok Job Makah. And I am not with Chastity. I am in between. I'm in between. I am not on the rock, in the light. I am not in the darkness, in the sand. I am in between. This is where Psalm 27 is. In between. Okay? In between. I'll leave my shoes off. All right, so when we look at this cycle, we see someone who is struggling with darkness, but believes that the light will come save them. Okay? Now, verse 4 is what I want us to focus in on. The one thing I want from God, look at verse 4. The one thing I want from God, the thing I seek most of all, is the privilege of meditating in His temple, living in His presence every day of my life, delighting in His incomparable perfections and glory. That's a lot of big English words. I wonder what yours says. Yeah? Jesus is saying one day to a man who comes to see Him, the man says, Jesus, I want to be your follower. I want to come and follow you. And this man's very rich. His pocket is full of money. Jesus says, no problem. You come and follow me. But there is one thing you must first go do. Jesus tells a story one time about a man who discovers that there is a pearl of beautiful value. It is amazing. The man goes and sells everything he owns to buy the one thing. Remember? Many, many different times Jesus will talk about one thing. This is the thing that matters the most. In Psalm 27, this man, as he stands in between, not on the rock, not in the sand in between, he says, God, there is the one thing that I want from you. One thing that I want. I want to be in the temple where I can worship you. Now, where'd my marker go? Here we go. Okay. Temple. Let's talk about the temple. The temple is where? Where is the temple? Who knows? Where is it on the map? In the Old Testament. Where is it? Bole. Where is the temple? What city? Jerusalem. Thank you. Jerusalem. Okay? The temple is in Jerusalem. If I am a Jew and I am praying to God, I want to go be in the temple and worship, I want to go to Jerusalem and worship in the temple. This is the way I think of it. The world is a big ball. Yeah? And it is spinning all the time, out of control. Whoa, spinning. For the Jew, the temple is the one place that God takes His finger and puts it on the world, and the world stops. No chaos, no spinning. If I am a Jew, the temple is the place where the world makes sense. It is the one place that God says, here, this is where I am. This is where I live. Okay? So, this means That the person in Psalm 27 that is praying to God says, I want to go live where you live. God, I want to live where you live. Okay, you with me? Some of you look confused. Am I talking too fast? I'm talking fast. I'll slow down. The world is spinning out of control. Whoa, sand, darkness, craziness. Israel, everywhere Israel goes. Rome, Babylon, everywhere you go. Egypt. The temple is the one place that God takes his finger and puts it on the world and everything makes sense. This is where God lives. God, I want only one thing. I want to be where you live. This is where I want to be. Now when Jesus comes, what does Jesus say? God does not live in the temple, right? Where does God live? Jesus says, I am God. And Jesus was always walking, wasn't he? Walking, 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 walking. Jesus came to say God does not live in the temple. God is here for all of the world. Anywhere that I am is where you can go and live with me. Where does Jesus live? Who knows? I don't know. Do you know? It's not a place on the map. Does Jesus live here in let's see. Does Jesus live here in Loika? Loika? Yangon? Well, yes and no. Yes, the answer is yes. Does Jesus live in Richmond, Virginia? What do you think? Does Jesus live in Richmond, Virginia, Brongja?
Yes.
Yes. Does Jesus only live in Richmond, Virginia? No. Also in Michigan. Charlottesville, Virginia? Yes. How about Dallas, Texas? Is that where Long is, in Dallas? Jesus lives there too. Everywhere we go is where Jesus lives. The Bible tells us in the Gospels that there is nowhere that you could go where Jesus is not there. Now the Psalms also tell us God will find you no matter where you are. But for Psalm 27, this person is standing between rock, my rock went away, the rock and the sand. God, I don't want to be here. I want to live where you live, to worship you. Okay? To worship you. Here's my question for you. How do I ask it? Can you find a place in the world where Jesus is not there? Is there any place where Jesus says, no, I'm not going there? Where? Is Jesus in Kentucky? Absolutely. Jesus lives everywhere. Everywhere. Thailand. Kuala Lumpur. Did you find Jesus in Kuala Lumpur? Yes. Yes. So in Psalm 27, verse 4, the one thing I want from God, the thing I seek the most, is the privilege of meditating in his temple, living in his presence every day of my life, and delighting in his incomparable perfections and glory. This is this person's understanding of how we will walk with God when we are in between. Not on the rock and not in the sand, but in confusion. God, if you will take me to where you live, then the world will make sense. For the Christian brother and sister, we come to the place that we understand anywhere that we go, we can live with God. Anywhere. Rob and Amanda Roan have just arrived in Nam Kam. Map's over there. But let's say this was a map of Burma. All right, Nam Kam, right here. All right, China here, Nam Kam here. When they got there, Their apartment was not ready, no house. Yeah, so Amanda's thinking, oh no, what do I do? What do I do? Guess what? God is already alive and living in that apartment. She will find peace in her heart because Jesus is already alive there, living there. I believe that for the Christian reading Psalm 27, we must understand that the way that we learn to trust God when we are in the in-between is to be aware that Christ is already there with us. And if there's one thing we know about the Bible, it's that it says wherever God is, that is sacred ground. We take off our shoes and we worship. This is the key. Wherever Christ is a place that we must come together and worship together. This is how trust. Oh no, we're connected. See, always when I wear a cigar. Here we go. You're free. Always, always. We worship. Wherever there's a temple, we worship. The temple in the Old Testament is in one place. It's where we come to worship. Only one man? If I go to the temple, do I worship by myself? Never. Always together. Wherever we find God in the temple, we must come and worship together. Yeah? In 8 years ago, Burma came to Tabernacle Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia. This poor woman sitting in this chair, she looked at me like I had two heads on my shoulders. She did not understand a word I was saying to her. Nothing. And when she would speak to me, and she would say, Yasawena, Dablu. You know, she'd say very simple words in Korean. I would look at her and I would see somebody that had two heads. I did not understand anything she was saying. Nothing. Oh, and it was hard. So difficult. It was disorienting. We were all confused. But do you know what happened? When we moved out of this room and into the sanctuary, and we began to worship together as one, suddenly we found ourselves coming alive. And we began to understand what trust looked like. It is only when we come together and worship that we can learn what it means to trust God together. Psalm 27 makes it very clear. Life can be very difficult. Disorienting. Whoa, I'm falling. There's darkness. I do not understand. But we learn how to trust God through our worship of God. And we worship God together. I was speaking to a woman this week in the church. I will not say this in my sermon because maybe she will be in the pew, okay? So I will not say this in the sermon today. But she is questioning whether or not God exists. She is going through a lot of pain right now. So much pain. So she's sending me messages at night. I do not believe God exists anymore. God has turned his back on me, she says. I don't understand, if God is so good, why I am suffering so much and my children. And what I want to say to her is, you have to continue to trust that God will guide you to the light. But it is difficult for me to tell her that, because she does not understand the power of worshiping together with a group. She hardly ever comes to worship. So for her, her relationship is just between one person, her, and God, and no one else. She does not have worship in her life. Some of us in this room worship 3-4 times a week. When I talk to my Karen, I'm the only Sagal here right now, yeah? But when I talk to my Karen brothers and sisters, when they were in the camp in Thailand, they worshiped 2 times every single day, 7 days a week. They worshiped, they worshiped, they worshiped. In America, that is more difficult, isn't it? We all work. We're all very busy. Busy, 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 busy. But the thing is if we find ourselves not worshiping together, then it becomes very difficult to trust God. There's something about coming to the place where God is and worshiping together that we learn how to trust God. I do not understand it. But this seems to be the way that it works. 8 years ago, Tabernacle Baptist Church had 1/2 of us here were from Burma. 1/2. Only one person spoke English. One. And also Burmese. So that means this poor girl, Sewatu, had to speak for everyone all the time here. Whew. She was busy. Busy, busy, busy. There was a man who was not part of our circle. He was Muslim from Karen State. He, like so many others, were really struggling. He did not have a job. He wanted a job, but he did not have a job. He could not feed his family. His children were hungry. When I went into his apartment, there were bugs all over the walls. He could not pay his bills. His family was in a bad place. Eventually, when he got a job with Chun Thong, Biak Kling, and one other Chin man that no longer lives here. They would get up at 3 a.m. in the morning and drive an old van to Fredericksburg, 1 hour away, and all day long they would wash cars all day, and they made $2 for 1 hour of work. $2. Illegal. That's not legal in America. This is the only work they could find. This man was really struggling. He receives a phone call one day from somebody from the apartment complex that says, "We're kicking you out of your home. At the end of today, we are going to come into your apartment and throw everything on the street, and you will no longer have a home to live in. You will be homeless." I received a phone call from somebody that said, "Help. Please come help this man." I went into this man's apartment. I did not know what to do. I had no idea what to do. But I began to try to speak with this man through the help of broken English and Burmese. And we had this really interesting conversation. Because here's a Christian Baptist pastor sitting down with a devout Muslim, and we are trying to communicate, and I'm trying to find a way to help this man, who I did not know. He was a stranger to me. I made some phone calls. I was very angry. I put my foot down and I said, "You will not do this. It is not legal." It became a big mess. But this man was able to stay in his apartment. It was amazing. And when I was doing this with the help of other Christians from Burma, I could sense that God, the light, was helping us. That God was guiding us to help this family. I can remember praying to God, "God, I am very confused. I am disoriented. I do not understand. What do we do? What do we do? I'm confused." But because I was helping together with people that I was worshiping with, I found myself trusting that even though I did not understand, that God would guide us. We can trust God together. And so my Chin brother here, and my Hakka sister here, and I found a way to trust God to help. Last week, 8 years later, last week, I go to the U.S. courthouse downtown in Richmond. Silent, one of our Chin men, is going to become a U.S. citizen. Whoa, wow, big day. It's very exciting. As I'm sitting there looking at the 70 people that are going to become U.S. citizens, they start saying their names and from what country they are from. Wow, it was like 30 different countries all over the world that were represented. Amazing. Do you know we finally got through 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. Guess who was in this chair? My Muslim friend that I met 8 years ago. I had not seen him since that moment that we were on the telephone together. And I saw him stand up, wearing new clothes, with his family, raising his hand, becoming a U.S. citizen. And it was amazing for me, because there was a sense that God had used our church to care for this man and his family. And all of these years later, God is still providing people. I walked up to him at the end of the service and I scared him. I said, "Oh, so-and-so, congratulations." He looked at me like I had two heads on my shoulders. He did not remember me. I had only been there for a very brief moment. But at the moment that I touched him, I could sense the light. God can be trusted. And when we come together and worship together, we learn what it means to trust God. Psalm 27 says, "God, evil is coming." Not good. Evil is on the way. But I trust you. God, I only want one thing. I want to live where you live. And there I want to worship with my brothers and sisters where you live in the temple. Worship matters. When we come together and worship in our own languages, we speak our heart's language to God. It delights God's ears when the Lisu gather and make all of that beautiful noise with guitars and drums and voices. It pleases God's ears. When the Kachins gather for worship and come from Charlottesville and Northern Virginia, and they all come together in the fellowship hall of this building, and they worship in Jingpo, it pleases God's ears and heart. Last night, the Chin gathered in the home of Chun Thong in Kliang. And when they did, a Phalam pastor preached for 1 hour. He preaches longer than me. 1 hour he preached. A long time. God's ears were pleased, and God's heart was pleased. Later today at 4 p.m., we will gather in the home of Sahemu and Wallo, and we will celebrate that they have purchased a new home, their first home in America. And we will worship, and God's ears will be pleased, and God's heart will be pleased. But do you know what? At 11 a.m. today at Tabernacle Baptist Church, 2 brand new friends from Kentucky, and brand new friends that have just come to us, all the way from Kuala Lumpur, and before that, Michina. And 2 friends that have only been married for 4 weeks, moved from Northern Virginia in here. We will all come together at 11 a.m. and we will worship our God in His temple, where He is, where He lives, everywhere, right? We will gather today and we will worship. And when we do, we will understand more what it means to trust God together. And if we can trust God, we can live in the in-between of rock and sand, of light and darkness. Yeah? That's the sermon today. Now you'll hear it 2 times. Maybe it will make more sense the second time. I hope. But 2 times I will try to say this to you today. Who has questions for me or comments for me? Anybody? Bolay, help me. Question, comment? Anybody? So far, so good. Okay. This is one of my favorite psalms. I love this psalm. God, I want to see your face. Yeah. God, I want to worship you in the place where you live. God, I trust you because I worship you. And I do it with my brothers and sisters. I love this psalm. Okay, one strange American phrase that maybe you have never heard. It is my sermon title. Not my first rodeo. You ever heard that phrase before?
Mm-hmm. Nope.
It's very strange, but it's a good one. Okay? Not my first rodeo. Okay? First, what is a rodeo? Okay, rodeos are very popular in America, in Texas. Maybe Long is at a rodeo. Also Canada. Okay? And you will find rodeos in different places in the world. Rodeos are for cowboys and cowgirls. Big cowboy hats. Yeah, you know what a cowboy is? Some of us may not know. All right, so a cowboy hat looks like a... Ooh, I'm a bad drawer. That's a cowboy hat, okay? A cowboy hat, all right? And they will ride their horses. And they will have a rope, a lasso, and they will swing it. And they will throw it, and they will catch the cow. And then they will jump off their horse, and they will tie the cow. Right? You seen this before? Or sometimes they go on a very angry bull, a male cow, yeah? And they will hold on to it, and that angry bull, and they hold on for dear life, and then the bull throws them off, and they fall on the ground. Do you have this in Burma? No, it's very strange. Very strange, okay? So in English, there's a phrase, not my first rodeo, which is a strange thing to say, all right? But it's very popular. When we hear this, we think, okay, I have been on a bull before, you know, with my cowboy hat, and I have fallen off, and I have hit the ground hard, and I have been hurt, but I got up, and I'm okay. This is not the first time I have suffered. I have been through difficulties before. Some people say that Psalm 27 is a song for the old. People that have been around for a long time, that understand when you fall off of the bull on the ground, that you learn to get back up. Some people say Psalm 27 is not a song for the young that have never suffered before. Last week we were in this, when the young suffer for the first time, this is where they are at, disorientation. But when the old that have suffered before and learned that they can trust God to get back up, the old understand Psalm 27 in a better way, because they understand. It's not their first rodeo. They've done this before. They understand that God will guide them out of it, out of their suffering. Does that make sense? So not my first rodeo, okay? So if you ever have a very difficult day, you can think to yourself, hey, I'm going to be okay. This is not my first rodeo. I've been in a bad place before. I'm going to be okay. All right? That's kind of what that means. Kind of. Do you all want to elaborate? Want to elaborate? Is that about it? Yes. All right. Okay. Who has any questions for me? Okay.
Is similar like Moses?
Which thing, Rongjab? This?
The three-stage cycle.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that similar? Is that related to Moses' wilderness?
Sure. The wilderness experience of wandering through wilderness? Absolutely. This is very, very common. Yes. You will see this over and over and over again in this story. Moses is in a good place. Yeah, Moses, right? Ah, life is good. Wow, things are so good for me. Look, I'm very important. The Pharaoh is my adopted father. I have the best clothes. Things are good. I eat good food. I have the best teachers in the world. But then what does Moses do? He murders a man, right? And he has to run away for his life. And now he is disoriented. He's lost everything. But then, through his father-in-law, he finds that he's on solid rock again. Life is good. And then God brings a burning bush, and suddenly he ends up disoriented again. He's confused. Yeah? So you see, sometimes it goes this way, but sometimes God will work this way. It can go either way. But then Moses comes to trust God, and he becomes reoriented. So therefore, when Moses is leading people through the wilderness, he is going to teach them the same thing that he has already learned. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. Good question. Others? Who else has a question for me? Okay. You are a blessing. Every last one of you. A blessing.